Any concerns, you guys?
Michael, let's take care of the total cost then.
Yeah, they're very close to the end of the project, so we don't anticipate anything additional.
Okay.
Yeah, I know so for the event.
Go second.
Roll call.
Gill, aye. Omen, aye.
Richards, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Sealy, aye.
These reports here. Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, on the administrative reports, there's not particularly a whole lot of note. On the administrative report, what I would note there is the 5.7% increase for the prior year, and then 6.9 compared to the average. So it's quite a different year this year, where water sales are up quite a bit. So that's, I guess, what I'd highlight on that one. On the engineering report.
Wait.
Oh,
Let's go back. Let's go back.
I'll go back to payables.
Well, yeah. Is there any concerns on the payables, you guys?
Just have one question, page 6, and it's the pilot payment to the city of Oak Creek.
Yep.
Can you explain that?
So annual payment in lieu of taxes payment, if it were run as a business, the business would owe taxes based on their assets. That's how this is developed. It's a simple calculation in the PSC's model. You take the city's tax rate, you apply the assets that the utility has, and there's a few other factors in there, but it comes out with this pilot payment, and that gets sent over to the city once a year.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I see we did not agendize the vouchers too, so if you have any questions, just let us know on those, and then we'll retroactively approve those at the next meeting, if you don't mind if we implement them. Sorry about that.
Mike, going back to the 6-month expenses, the changes in that position.
Yeah, a couple things there. You'll notice a few ups and downs, nothing particularly to speak of. You'll see some expenses being increased or compared to last year, expenses variance. You'll also see revenue variance, and that's largely due to the fact that we're selling more water this year. So more water is going to bring in more revenue, more water is going to bring in a few more expenses on that score. Nothing particular to note. I guess the one note is the change in that position is $110,000 to the positive compared to last year. So it's a good thing on water. The sewer side, probably the two biggest things there is a large revenue increase, but also a large expense increase. Those are both related to our MMSD charges. So again, that's a pass-through expense for us. When we're selling more water, we're going to have a larger charge for the treatment side of things on MMSD's side. So that's where those are. They're really not a change in the system. And then the bottom number there on the bottom right, 39,650 is a change compared to last year. Again, in the positive direction, which is really good for the sewer side. That typically hovers right on the line. It's typically a little plus, a little minus. Again, we're doing a little bit better this year, which is good.
Yeah, clearly the one on the expenses on the pumping and the water treatment were a little distorted too.
Yeah, very definitely.
And the same thing, there was pretty significant variance on the interest and investment income was, I don't know if we didn't budget that correctly or.
Yeah, I mean, we did. Part of it is, let's see, I'm going to get myself straight here. Part of it was us paying off or refinancing the debt that we had last year. Let's see if Derek's got any notes for me. Oh, part of it was the miserable interest that we've received this last year. It's just been, not good, and BMO fees have been higher.
It still just looked pretty distorted.
Yes, definitely did.
Okay. Any other concerns up to engineering, you guys?
It's okay.
On engineering operations,
So, I mean, we've got a bunch of projects that are starting to happen. Some start dates are coming. The Rawson Avenue, it looks like We Energies has got themselves sorted out there. I don't have a date for you, largely because We Energies can't get flaggers for the railroad to do their work. So while they're ready to do their work, we're having difficulty in getting flaggers. They're just not available. We tried to use the group that we have scheduled for ourselves if we couldn't use those for We Energies to flag the railroad, and they're simply not available as well. So we're still hopeful that this is going to start in mid-October, but it's just sort of up in the air. Rawson Avenue hydrant relocation, it looks like we're going to be hitting that mid-October delivery of the hydrants to the contractor so they can do the work. Those have been delayed all over the place, 10, 12 weeks in some cases on getting these parts. It's supply chain like every place else that we've heard problems on. So we've got that going here as well. Other than that, sanitary rehab project, end of October, we'll be done with that. We talked about that just a little bit earlier. And the satellite leak detection program that we're still working on, we've finally gotten 2 demos scheduled for listening equipment so we can find some of those leaks that the satellite highlighted. We've got a demo next week and one the week after that. So hopefully are starting to move on that a little bit as well. That's been a difficult process. That's about it on engineering, I think.
Distribution. We had some repairs on East Marquette.
We did. We've had kind of a theme starting to grow. Happened on Wake Forest where repair would be completed. We'd energize the main again and pop another hole. On Wake Forest, it happened to be 3 holes and significant tuberculation inside the main. So we've got a lot of mineral deposit from the old well days that are choking off those mains in there. They're going to come up for replacement sooner. Not that they don't need it for based on condition, but sooner than almost anything else for that. We also had the same thing on Verdev here just recently. It's not in this report, but just south of Drexel Avenue. Same thing there where we have a lot of tuberculation in those mains as well. So we do need to address that. The other
Need to assess those repairs to the property owners on Verdev.
Didn't go far in the south though.
right.
To make it important.
Marquette was real similar. There was that ended up being went from a 3-hour valve repair project to an all-day main replacement project. We ended up eliminating that valve, replaced a section of main, a short section of main, popped another hole, replaced another section of main, popped another hole. We did finally get it to hold Pewte Road, which isn't on this report. You'll see it next month. Same thing, just east of Howell Avenue. That started about 9 o'clock in the morning, and the guys got done at 2:30 in the morning. So that was an all-day event over there. Every time they tried to turn the main back on, it popped in another spot. So we're starting to get more and more of that type of work. It's just our aging water main system really is all it is. I would say in the old days, or what we've had up till now, is a failure, you could repair that and move on, and now we're getting more broad failure rates, or we're seeing more deterioration of the pipe. So, and actually on Pewte Road, the pipe looked fantastic when you'd stare at it from the top, but there's just these little pockets of corrosion here and there and everywhere, and that's what was causing us problems. Interestingly enough, on the last 2 breaks, they were both cast iron. Cast iron, we typically see a shear of the pipe, not a corrosion hole. We're now seeing corrosion holes as more prominent on the cast iron. So it's just an aging system, and we're going to have to start addressing that. We're going to see that once capital gets.
Mike, can you tell us how old that pipe was, or that area?
The stuff on Pewte and Verdev, Wake Forest is just a little bit newer, but it was all put in the early 60s. So it's added to useful life for sure. And we've got a lot in our system that are in the same boat. You know, there's a lot of development going on then.
Yeah, can you take the time to replace some of that?
Yes, it is. Yes. That's really all I have for, I guess sewer camera. We're still missing one sewer camera. It came back, was repaired, but didn't function completely. It's been sent back for them to re-repair. So we're still only down to one camera.
That's standard operating procedure.
Seems like cameras. The only thing I really have on the plant report is just a noting that the yearly pumpage and the yearly peak day are up significantly. You'll see the yearly peak day is up 17.8%. That's a very sensational number. It is still lower. This is not the highest number we've ever had by far. So we still have ability to handle this for sure, but it does indicate what's going on this year as well. And it came very early this year in June. That's unusual for us. But then I always look at the yearly pumpage as well as just how are we doing throughout the year, and that's up significantly too as well compared to last year and the 5-year average. So,
Mike, was that peak day? Was that a weather day or is that just the industrial use?
it was a weather day. Yeah, it was a weather day.
So hot?
It had gone a couple of days of having dry weather like we had in that early part of the year, and yeah, it was just pumping from that. Plant is full staffed but not fully trained yet, so we have 2 operators that are not qualified for operating yet. So while we have the right numbers, we just don't have they're not up to speed just yet. So we're still working on that.
But you got a new guy this past month there too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Came from, she'd done an internship at Cudahy, had been with the METC's water program. She's coming in just hitting the ground running. She's doing really good. Actually, may just pass the previous operator that we had hired. So we're working with that.
I also noticed there's some more concern about the security down at the low lift station.
Yeah.
Is the improvements we're being in process of being done down there, is that going to help that?
Yes, it will. Yeah, construction is going on right now on that, and we'll add a light at the end and a camera at the end so we can see up the driveway as well as turn back towards the building with that camera. So yeah, it's going to help out a lot.
Other concerns for Mr. Sullivan?
Looks good.
Okay, you're off the hook for a while. Tell Mr. Allard, thank you, that I got the CMOM and CMAR reports.
Oh, you did good. Okay, good.
Sorry, Dale. One more thing, Mike.
Yeah.
We do the sewer cammering. There's no other way other than probably cost-effectively way to do water, except for where you got breaks, right?
Yeah, so we prioritize main replacement. We have a number of factors that can help us out and decide when it's time to replace that main. But yeah, other than that, trying to evaluate the condition or a predictive model just doesn't work very well. Especially in Oak Creek where our corrosion pockets are just, it's amazing. One area can be completely fine. Another area we can have a lot of breaks. 6th Street's a great example. Most of the main is perfectly fine, but you get up around Burkhardt Court there and we've got a lot of breaks right in that little stretch there. So, yeah.
You should still be picking on Mikey number 1 or Mikey number 2. But sorry. Just that Centennial Drive Road, maybe that's in the capital improvement project there too. But is that progressing right now? That modification to Centennial Drive for that?
No, with no, we're still working through the DNR process and trying to get the stream bank permitted so that we can do that work.
Hey, Mikey number 2, what do you got on your report? One thing of interest to me was the personal property I&I issues that you're taking along with the Sewage District. I didn't know they were doing that. That's great.
Right, and you may recall we did a neighborhood down in Oakview subdivision, Oakview number 3, in the 4th district last summer, and so this is really just moving on to the next area that looked like a good candidate.
So the Sewage District anteed up for you guys to do that last year as well?
So no, this is that program through MMSD. So the city outlaid the funds to make the payment to the contractor, but then there's a streamlined and fairly prompt process for reimbursement through MMSD. So the money goes out to the contractor from the city, but then MMSD is pretty quick with the reimbursements.
Well, to what extent? I mean, did you guys go in and replace all the laterals in those subdivisions?
So we start out with an informational flyer introducing the project, and then a questionnaire, and asking if there's it's not mandatory, if there's an interest. And then from that list that we compile, then we go ahead and do the exploratory. We do we send the camera up the laterals, and then determine what one qualifies for needing repair, and then what is the adequate repair. So we probably took care of close to 50% of the laterals in that neighborhood, and we expect probably somewhere along that same participation rate in this neighborhood.
So the homeowner doesn't pay anything?
That's correct.
And anybody stupid enough to turn it down?
People turn it down. People turn it down. And when this program was first introduced, back probably, 10, 12 years ago, it was like a cost share. And, they were having problems with, people wanting to participate. So
if you go back historically, it's always been 100% on the property owner's responsibility. Right? So the sewage district has migrated on, and I can only assume it's because of the horrific, issues in Milwaukee, that those seeds got planted, that it started in Milwaukee, and now they can't just do it in Milwaukee, so it's now expanding out to the suburbs. And clearly, we've got a couple of older subdivisions where that would be extremely beneficial. So I'm happy to hear that that's continuing. So that should be a no-brainer for the local officials to support that program.
yes, certainly Oak Creek with the housing stock still relatively young compared to other communities. It's good that we can take care of some of these older neighborhoods, but there's just not as many as there are elsewhere.
So then it just goes through one contractor starts at the end of the subdivision and just works down it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any other concerns for Mikey number 2? Ed, you're on the hot seat. Got anything?
We actually, as of tomorrow, have the trash and recycle contract being bid out. It'll be published in the paper tomorrow and a week from tomorrow. We're going to get bids in on trash and recycle. Most of the recycle contract we got hammered on 2 years ago because of the recycling market was so poor. It still hasn't made like 100% recovery. It's gotten a little bit better, and we're actually hoping for a number that is catastrophic. 2 years ago, I want to say we had I think it was a 12 or 14% increase actual recycling number. At that point, that's when we decided not to rebid it and just do a 2-year extension, which is over this January or December 31st. This is why we have it bid out. We decided not to do a new contract at that time because the word on the street is that they would just be guessing at their numbers, and they would end up giving us crazy numbers to try to cover their end on the costs. We're hoping that it's settled down a little bit, and like I was saying, we will get the bids in on October 4th and hopefully bringing it to the council shortly thereafter on the 19th. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing, other than budget and some other, things that are on my report, which are, kind of busy work stuff that, I mean, it's important for our department to do, but it's not earth shattering, you know, I mean, it's day-to-day work stuff.
Is there any concerns with the current contractors? Is it one company or two companies?
Currently, it's two contracts, but it is one company. We put it out this time as a single bid for both the trash and recycle. I mean, to be honest with you, there's only a couple of companies in the area that are going to bid on it and it'll be able to bid on it, you know, I mean, we anticipate getting 3 bids.
Other concerns for Ted?
Just to let you guys know, you only have Ted for probably 2 more meetings and Simmons for 3 more. So make sure you get your licks in the next couple months, because they're heading to greener pastures here pretty soon. So
Save it for you, Andy.
Oh, grayer.
Not always greener on the other side of the fence, you guys.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
All right. All right, on this CIP stuff.
yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll jump right into it. This is a really critical part of our operating budget, of our budget cycle. And traditionally, of course, this was handled by the Capital Improvements Committee. And, you know, that's kind of been placed in the envelope of the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets now. So lucky you. I want to take a little bit of a building block approach on this and give you kind of some background on how we do things and where monies come from, because I know it's the first time for some of you, and probably jogging Dale's memory quite a bit here. So I think to do that, let's go to the 3rd page, and this will be kind of our hymnal here today, this larger series of spreadsheets. If we could just go to the 3rd page of that. It's the 3rd page. We can talk a little bit about funding sources, and our RCIP in the city of Oak Creek, very unique to the city of Oak Creek in that our CIP budget does not, at this time, does not have any property tax levy support. The city is fortunate to have contributions from We Energies, and $2 million annually of those We Energies money we dump into the capital improvement plan budget, and $1 million of that has traditionally been earmarked for roads, and $1 million has been earmarked for, I guess you could call it, equipment or other projects and needs. So if you look at that, you can see the first 2 major funding sources, the We Energy, $1 million and $1 million. The last few years, we've also been including what we know to be true, or what we know at the time of our TID work. And so various TIDs are supporting various projects. So the TIDs are a funding source as well. We also have a capital transfer in our stormwater fund, which is a special utility that we have special charges for, as you know, on our tax bill. So there's a funding source there. Park impact fees. And this is somewhat unique, but we have the MMSD reimbursable funding, which is for that property inflow and infiltration that we'll talk about a little bit later. We just touched on that. So equipment replacement and building replacement funds. So this council over the past several years has been extremely diligent in putting monies away for future capital replacements, whether that be building upkeep or whether that be equipment needs. We have very healthy fund balances in each of those replacement funds, and it's really made our CIP budgeting very easy, or I guess less painless, the last few years. So where does that money come from, though? I have to acknowledge the really good work that our department managers do in really maintaining a positive budget variance from revenues to expenditures every year. That's how we have money to allocate in accordance with our general fund balance policy. So because of their continued good work and watching the numbers every year, we have some cash at our disposal. We also have a kind of a unique circumstance now with ARPA cash. For those not familiar, the ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act monies. The city of Oak Creek is slated to received $3.9 million from that ARPA legislation to be used for specified purposes. And the way we've done this budget, we have some splits of where we're taking certain dollars from one area and certain dollars from another. So you can see those kind of splits there with the 50%.
Timeline on those revenues.
We have received 1.9. We will receive another 1.9 next June-ish. And we have until December 31 of 24 to commit those.
So, you know, have a plan in place as to what you're going to use money for.
Yes. Yep.
So the first 1.9, is that already allocated?
We have not. This would be subject to the conversation we'll have today on the projects that we are allocating some of those.
But I mean, out of this 3.9, you haven't got any money yet. You're expecting 1.9.
We've received 1.9, but not a single dollar has been committed by the council for any purpose.
Okay.
So, and then you can see further on kind of who's getting the love, and, you know, obviously with the road pieces, the engineering is usually the takes on, and public works usually take on the most of these funds. So just generally.
And if I could, I'm sorry, Andrew, on these particular revenue stream, can you send me a copy of what is the definition of what these monies should be used on? Not that, you know, we're buying, you know, stuff that we shouldn't be buying.
Sure. Yeah, we will love to give you the treasury guidance on that, Dale, and we'll let you walk through that and let us know if you have any questions.
The executive summary, I can assume this.
No, we'll give you what you can. The reason we're not necessarily making a plan for all of those dollars is because, you know, the guidance, the treasury guidance does change, and we're finding that it kind of gets a little more flexible the longer we wait. And so we're kind of taking a wait and see approach on that. But there's some ARPA cash that we're using for a certain project here, which we'll get to, which is the beer garden by and large. So with that, general comments. We are using a lot of cash in this capital improvement budget. A lot of our cash on hand. You can see the building replacement fund is, you know, we're probably drawing down roughly half of that right now. We have $1 million beginning this year. We had $1 million in each of the building and equipment replacement fund, and we have some dollars in this year's CIP that are coming from that. Generally, personally, a little uncomfortable with the cash that we are using, especially from the building replacement fund. However, I think the projects are meritorious. We'll get to that, details of those. And the main thing to take away from, we're using a significant amount of cash. However, after this fall here, we will be selling a significant asset on our lakefront, which is the land that's around Lake Vista Park that's going to become Lakeshore Commons. So in the back of your mind, if you're uncomfortable with that cash, just know that when we receive those monies from that land, we're replenishing these back to where they were at the beginning of this year. If that eases any burden or stress on using.
Andrew, can you give them a ballpark figure?
3.3 million for that land transaction. That's just phase one. So we'll be able to replenish these and then really probably allocate more of that depending on what the council wants to do with those proceeds. So the way we've organized this, and typically we kind of walk each department manager or division head up to the podium and kind of walk through all of them. But I thought since we have, 46 or 50, 45 or 50 items, that we would break this up a little bit. And if you would turn to page 36 of your second packet, which is the CIP requests. We color-coded these CIP requests on this master spreadsheet for things we thought we really needed to talk about, things that we can talk about, but they're relatively low dollar amount, and that's the gold. And then in the pinkish, things that are, already committed, they're in keeping with our strategic plan, or the council has just already notionally said, hey, we want to continue to do this. I'd like to start on page 36, which is the body armor replacement. Body armor replacements should actually be in the pink and not the orange. So you look at body replacements, the light truck fleet leasing program, computer network replacement, et cetera, et cetera. All of these are committed to or in keeping with the council strategies of the past few years, especially in terms of the bridge maintenance fund, which again is another sinking fund we're putting money away to every year. Stormwater vehicles and equipment fund, same logic. And the stream restoration fund, same logic. Large projects in the horizon, we want to begin ferreting money away to accommodate those. We have a fire gear replacement, year 2 of 5. This is really the breathing apparatus. We've committed to funding that on an annual basis, 20% of the breathing apparatus every year. Street tree replacement is also a recurring item. That is just for an allocation of money every year to really to continue to replace trees as we're removing them for emerald ash borer, but also just to beautify the canopy as we see fit otherwise. 2 tractor leases. We were early on in the years of the John Deere boom mower lease and the trackless tractor lease. We grappled with that last year with the CIP committee, and we thought we do have the funds on hand to fund these all at once and fund them with cash, but the interest is so impunitive, if you will. It's pretty much, why not lease it? And if we want to pay it off someday, we'll do that. But it's thousands of dollars, below $10,000 of interest on a $280,000 piece of equipment. It seemed to have that flexibility.
So again, Andrew,
Yeah.
From the color coding standpoint, the pinkish is basically already designated, if you will. So I don't know that we even need to discuss those, right?
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, unless you had any questions just on the strategies or you have any particular things you wanted to know on those, but otherwise we weren't going to walk through those kind of one by one.
Sorry, Dale.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that maybe that Bob and Fred and Dale, and I would actually appreciate an update on how the leasing, the fleet leasing program is going.
Sure. I can give you some general information now, and then if you want something more specific, and Ted, invite you to chime in here.
But one second, going back to the colors, the yellow, the gold is something that we are setting up as a high priority that we should be doing. Is that what that?
No, the first uncoded, if you will, the not gold or not pink, are items that we're going to walk through one by one, and everybody will present their information to you. And the gold is probably, do you need more information on any of those items? Because we'd be happy to bring the staff up and let them answer any questions you have. We probably, unless you deem it appropriate, we probably won't walk through those one by one unless you'd like to.
Relatively small money for.
Yeah.
And then the pink is, we're committed. It's part of our larger strategy. It's a recurring item, and I don't think we need to talk about it. Yeah.
I think you guys already designated some items that are at least that are in there.
Yep, exactly.
Multiple years of the same. Okay.
But regarding the leasing program, to Alderman Gale's point, question, and I don't know what else you'd need, Ken, but.
No, I just.
So we.
So these guys weren't present when we were.
Yeah, no. We have roughly, we have 30 vehicles of our light DPW fleet leased. I think generally speaking, we've really come to love the program, Ted, if I can put words in your mouth, and maybe you could speak to some more particulars. We'll be doing a few more vehicles underneath our $200,000 budget this year. So we'll be continuing to chip away. I think we have roughly 40 light duty vehicles in DPW, right around that 3840 number.
In the neighborhood.
It's a master equity lease arrangement. So we buy vehicles low, we sell them high, and really the cost of ownership in those interim years when we own the vehicle is just really, really low because of our advantageous buying power as a local government unit. I think that everything that we were sold there's nothing that we were sold on the program that hasn't come to fruition. We are in the first couple years now of us actually selling the first year vehicles of 3-4 years ago, and we're seeing very high yield on those vehicles. I guess I don't know if you had anything else to offer.
Actually, I do have a couple things. When we started this program out, we had designated $200,000 a year. Since we had started this program, and like Andrew said, we have 30 trucks. We have never actually used the entire $200,000. Some of that money is spilled back into the general fund. As a matter of fact, as of 7/14 of this year, we had only spent $383,000 on that lease program. And the one thing to remember is all of those trucks, when we originally started this program, we were sending those into the Wisconsin surplus auction. Some of those vehicles were 15, 16 years old. We were selling them for, almost next to nothing, I mean, nobody really wanted them, they were sold, but they weren't high dollar amounts. I actually just got an email from Jennifer from Enterprise. I think it was either this morning or yesterday evening. That because now we're getting the equity out of the sale, just the sale of the 2 first trucks that we sold that were from the original trucks from our first trucks that we got on a lease, our equity out of those 2 sales were $27,000. So we're hopeful that as we continue this process on, that, our $200,000 that we're dedicating continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller, even on, as our fleet gets larger. So I'm not going to tell you that someday it's almost like they're paying us to drive around in new trucks, but certainly would be nice. I don't ever think it'll make a net zero, but I do think we're going to continue to see that $200,000 number go down every year.
I don't know where we are at specifically this year, and I might be misquoting the numbers just a little bit, but by order of magnitude, when we began the process, our light duty fleet had an average age of like 03 or 04. And after 2 years plus of the program, our average age was like 2014. So you can see we would not be able to do that on a cash basis. I mean, $200,000 a year, you get, I don't know, 6-7 of those vehicles maybe. And we've turned 30 over in 3 years.
Well, and some of the ones that we're talking about, when you talk about 30 vehicles, some of the vehicles that we have, like we've gotten 3 stake bed trucks with power lifts on them, and we've gotten 2 1-ton dumps that are completely outfitted to do parking lot snow removal with a stainless steel spreader and chloride and brine tanks on them and that. So those are over $100,000 vehicles. So I mean, we've got 2 of those, and we've only spent $383,000 on the entire program.
That's I think for myself and others that looked at these, I mean, it was vehicle safety, fuel efficiency, and maintenance were primary drivers of the decision making there. And how do you feel that's working out so far?
I think it's working out great. I mean, we don't do really any work on the vehicles that we have leased. We've got the place right down the street does the oil changes at Coon. And we just drop them off, and a couple hours later they're done. And none of the stuff is going to come into any of the heavier maintenance until after we sell the thing. I mean, if we only keep there's a few of the trucks like the ones I was talking about that we're using as a smaller lot, like for police and fire lots and this lot. That will keep for longer than 3 years. But for the most part, I mean, we won't even have a need for putting brakes on them yet by the time we trade them in. So Oh, yeah, the whole thing's under warranty for the 3-year period, so, other than, we put a dent in one of them, we had it fixed. Other than that, we haven't spent a nickel on them.
There was another stat too, and it was when we were beginning to sell our first round of vehicles. It was probably a Silverado. I would imagine they have the highest resale. We owned the vehicle for over 2.5 years, almost 3 years. The total cost of ownership, absent fuel, was like $3,200 after we sold it. I mean, like you said, they almost paid us to drive that around for a few years. So we're very, very happy with the program to date.
And we're to the point right now, we've gotten pretty proficient at swapping over the radios, and, and we strip off all the LED Mars lights and that, and move them to the next vehicle. And our guys have gotten, pretty good at that. Those are the only things that we actually do to the vehicle. All the rest of the stuff, like the spraying liners and headache racks, stuff like that, they come right with the vehicle. So
The only thing I'd say is use a little bit of caution, because I think some of this is only temporary, that it's, tied to the semiconductor,
that I would agree with. I don't think we're going to see the resale values quite as high for used vehicles in the future as we are now, but we're certainly enjoying it while we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for Andy. Does this also include the utility, the water and sewer chance to lease trucks also, or are they included with this system?
We certainly threw it out there. Did Mike leave? No, I'm here. We certainly threw it out there. I think you thought, for the most part, you were on a pretty good cash replacement basis, but, I think we'd be open to taking a look at that fleet again.
Yeah, correct. It's definitely something to review for sure, but we've been on a program where we're replacing 1, 2, maybe 3 vehicles a year. Our fleet is under 12 years old, so we're doing very little maintenance on them as well. We're actually doing well when we're either trading them in. We're getting kind of stupid money from the dealers because of what's going on now with the wild market for used vehicles, particularly trucks. We know that won't continue, but yeah, we've been really good on just replacing them out in cash.
I just feel if they're successful for the rest of the city, it should kind of help out the
Yeah, we
utility.
definitely want to look at the numbers and see what can be done there.
And, you didn't start as far behind as we did.
Right. It's kind of a different starting place. Yeah.
Yeah, where we were like, how do we wrap our heads around an average light fleet of 2003 or 4? Like, do we replace 7 vehicles a year for 5 years, or do we do this program and kind of catch up all at once? And it's proven to be really beneficial for us. So,
Just feel they were overlapping the type of work they do, and it's similar. Why not include them? Thanks, Mike.
So I don't have anything more on pink unless anybody else does, and then maybe we can go on to the gold and just pause for questions. The gold ones begin on page 26 of the CIP packet.
Only question I had on the pink was, we had that discussion earlier in the year about LED street lighting. And, I'm not quite sure if there shouldn't be a rainy day fund for some of these LED projects.
So it was either Mike Simmons or Ted actually put in a request for a first phase of the LED conversion. Well, let me back up. This line item is a standard line item we have every year. This is just your regular knockdowns. The plow hits them, the motorist, hits them. If we have to, replace a direct bury pole, this is where that comes out of. So that's kind of a routine line item. It's not necessarily our LED conversion, although of course when we put new poles up, we put an LED fixture on them. That study that we did is approaching at least maybe 2 years old now, and we're going to have Ted and Mike leaving, and they were both pretty critical in that process. So Max and I are going to kind of pick up the pieces of where that is. And I thought, the first thing we're going to have to do is update the cost benefit analysis and update the analysis in general before we can just implement a project. So I thought we were just a little premature now. I think that in 2022, we very likely will have good momentum and at least pick a pony and an option and have a funding source and really be able to, implement a project near the end of 2022. That's my objective, or that's our goal. But I don't think it would be a good use of time to go through that here today, because I think it was a little premature.
We want to start with the first one there, Apple Creek.
Unless you just want to pause if there's any questions on any of the gold items. Even just by name in the item requested, you can probably tell exactly what it is without even reading the descriptions. But as Ken said, relatively low dollar amounts, all within the We Energies cash, $1 million cash, with the exception of the generator transfer switches and the PD headquarters. But that's just a $20,000 item. So is there any questions for anybody in the room on any of those items?
Mike,
Public Works, park things, shouldn't we be tapping, the, park, impact fees, yeah?
No, it's always a little bit of a judgment call, but I think those fall into the bucket more of a routine maintenance versus new construction or complete tear down and replace. So that's what, and with a relatively low dollar amount, that's probably more of a maintenance item versus a park impact fee item. It's kind of murky. It's a gray area. For instance, when we were looking at the skate park last year, we did this kind of argument in our head or debate in our heads, and it was, well, we're completely taking out the old skate park and building it new. That's probably an impact fee item versus just doing $100,000 maintenance on the surface of the skate park. So we chose the $1 million of cash, Alderman Tolman, but certainly you can ask, you can ask us to look a little further into that. If
Thinking that could free up money to, be reallocated somewhere else. It's, what kind of, how healthy is that fund, park impact? It's up there, isn't it?
1.9.
1.9.
But I do think I'm more comfortable with this being more of a maintenance item versus
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Versus a new construction.
Okay.
so we've got 1.9 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, something like that. Last check. Sounds right.
The only thing that concerns me with those, and I'm sure you're well aware of the fact that you have to have an expenditure program with that 1.9. If you don't turn around and if you don't spend it in a reasonable length of time, okay, you have to refund those dollars. So, you've got a nice healthy stockpile. Make sure you've got a plan for utilizing those fees. Otherwise, it's got to go back.
I had a quick question on the Lake Vista Park Pavilion for the, there should be some warranty. I was down there last week when I stopped in the doors with the surface blistered on the doors of the facility. It seems very odd.
Yeah, we had thought kind of the same. I don't necessarily know as how that is going on, 3 years now? I don't believe.
The wood doors at the entrance doors, the varnish is blistered and.
Yeah, that's really actually some of the things we're looking to do on the pavilion building itself. Some of the stuff on the top and around the outside, like the roofing edges, that's needs to be redone. Yeah, I don't necessarily know. Like even some of the outdoor shelters were done in like pine. Which,
I know.
Well, it doesn't hold up very good with the weather and that, and so that's, we were certainly hopeful that we weren't going to be doing this after 3 years. But I mean, I guess even if you look at your deck outside your house, you're refinishing that every other year with just the sunlight and the wind and rain and all that. So. I mean, it's just an ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, if I can interject here. So, yeah, right. Ted, you're correct. I think that the pavilion was basically occupied March or April of 2018. So, yes, it's a little over 3 years. But I agree. I think that I wish working with the architect at the time, there are better choices out there for some of these finishes. And, just to have that stained finish. And I don't even think there's any, lacquer coat on top of that. But yes, we've seen where the sun and the weather has really taken a toll on these materials. And there's other materials out there that you see just going on residential houses that hardy plank. And I've seen a pavilion that was done in Franklin recently that has that material, and that stuff just looks good and it looks really durable. And so kind of wish we had considered that a little more in the process. So maybe we should challenge our architect a little bit more as far as, hey, what's okay, here's the look, but what is the durability? So that's hindsight.
It's like picnic tables. So, we done with the gold and the pink?
I am.
We're good? Okay, now on the white and green section, how about if we try to get rid of Doug and the police chief? Lakefront master planning consultant, 80 grand. And that's coming out of park impact fees. That seems like a no-brainer. Any concerns on that one?
Just a little
Follow up with what we're doing at the lakefront.
little more commentary if you don't mind, because it's a bit, well, there you go.
So obviously, the city has made some tremendous, very well thought out investments in the lakefront. And we've seen how that is yielding some very positive results, not only in terms of cleaning up, obviously a polluted lakefront, but in terms of the opportunities it can provide for further development and for the parks aspect and recreational opportunities for our residents and visitors. So when you think about the lakefront, you can compartmentalize it into what we call the North Bluff and the South Bluff. South Bluff, work on that started 10 years ago, probably even a little bit more. Very, very difficult, complicated process, but we can see how that has yielded results, and we're just starting to get into the private development aspect of that. The North Bluff, the Peter Cooper site, some of the private properties on the north end are probably in the same position that we were in the Lake Vista area during that probably a 10-year period, maybe a little less than that. And in order to really maximize the long-term value of that, both in terms of the assessed value and the development value, but in terms of the value to the residents and visitors in terms of how we utilize that open space, we wanted to take a step and really have a consultant prepare more of a park master plan for that, much like JJR did for the Lake Vista Park. And this is a little bit even more nuanced than that in the sense that there's going to be some major investments that are taking place in the North Bluff, and I'm not sure, Angie, if this board's aware of all of them, but in order to leverage those investments in terms of the bluff stabilization that will be necessary in the next few years, probably it's necessary this year, there are certain things, physical improvements that are being made to the lakefront, and we just want to make sure that at the end of the day, we just didn't spend money on stabilizing a bluff without having the opportunity to capitalize on that for the recreational aspect of the development. So we want to make sure we have a professional come in and design a beautiful kind of extension of the park system on the properties that the city owns along the North Bluff.
I guess to sum up what Doug just said, we have a $9 million liability. We have to stabilize the bluff. So for a pretty insignificant incremental cost, let's make it accessible to the public and have folks, at least as one part of this. We think that accessibility to the lakefront from at least our Lake Vista Park to the north, to our other bluff to the north, hopefully to Bender Park as well someday, makes a lot of sense.
History there going all the way back to Pender Park. We were losing 7 to 10 feet every year all the way down to Oakwood. It was nothing but a cliff. We had people driving cars over the edges, committing suicide in those streets. Any other concerns for Doug?
Where are we at on the groundbreaking down there? I saw in the monthly report that September was this month. Are we getting close?
So with that F Street, I'm sorry.
What?
Now the closing is scheduled for, I believe it is the end of this month. And the regulatory framework is being discussed by the Planning Commission in terms of the PUD with a hearing before the Common Council on October 4th. So once the project closes, there'll be a lot of activity going on there. The stated goal, and it's an ambitious one, is to have obviously work throughout the winter on the underground, the grading, what have you, with the intent at least stated by the developer in terms of having inventory available in the summer of next year.
The Albanshine beer garden portable, so we can put it on a trailer, and
It's a big trailer.
should be on the lakefront. I've said it before. I'll say it again.
I was going to say, given these recent discussions, I can't believe it's taken you this long to tell me that. But I think we'll have some other cool stuff on the lakefront.
Yes.
We will not be neglecting the lakefront, Mike, I assure you. So we'll have some other cool stuff out there.
All right.
Yeah, we spent a couple bucks down there.
Thank you. And I will stick around for the beer garden discussion too. So, yep.
It says on the cost analysis sheet that this is eligible expense from TID 13. But then you have a list on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it could do, it could be either one, but I'm, planning a park expansion like we're talking about here is a appropriate impact fee expense. So I think we probably had two options and I chose to do the park impact fees.
And that,
you were just letting us know.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly where the money comes from. There's some options there. I will say also that, just the expense, a portion of which I believe we will be applying for a coastal management grant for the planning, much like we did back in whenever we did the South Bluff. So that number might be even less depending on the results of that grant application.
I'm a little concerned about Albanshine Park and that $1.3 million. I'd like a little more explanation of the detail of how you came up with those numbers. And
sure. Well, I'll let the person who came up with the numbers talk about that.
It just seems like a big number for just that park compared to the rest of the city and what we have.
Mr. Chair, do you mind if we go to that one? Because I think that's the only one.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I can shed some background information on that. The city did a master plan for Albanshine Park. And as part of that, there was a palette and a range of alternative development scenarios, which did include a pavilion, which did include many of the things that we're talking about with the Albanshine Park Beer Garden. Now, this specific beer garden proposal is a little bit different from that in the sense of the geography varies within the park, but these are improvements that were planned for as part of the master plan, and it's just a matter of executing that master plan now. And like I said, the cost of the pavilion, for example, whether it's in point A or point B, that was anticipated. The cost of the parking lot expansion was anticipated. So this is not to discount the investment that's being proposed here, but it is an extension of the planning that has taken place over the last several years.
I think I would share Alderman Tolman's concerns about a project of this nature should fit the environment. And to me, the lakefront is where you ought to be emphasizing a project such as this $1.3 million. And the other thing, when it comes to parks, I would turn around and remind you guys there isn't really any parks in the 6th district. And when we turned around and did the TIF district for Amazon, there was a promise in there about putting in a park for that subdivision that's on the east side of 13th Street. And I don't know that there's any plans for that.
Yeah, and
I'll get in here.
It's
so
a convoluted situation.
if I may just give you the quick 30-second synopsis of what's going on there. What we thought would be a relatively straightforward and easy process, and working with the county to secure the lands necessary for that, has been anything but. So in essence, the land that the county acquired via foreclosure from the English Share subdivision, they don't want. They never were supposed to have owned that. They're giving it back to the homeowners association, which doesn't exist. And it isn't even a matter of saying, well, we'll take it. We as the city will take it. It says, no, we can't do that. Now we have to get it back from the individual lot owner. So we haven't forgotten about them. We're still actively planning for that. It's just a lot more complicated than anyone ever thought it would be.
Just following up on driving home a couple of Doug's points. We had a lengthy public process. Parks Commission, Common Council adopted the Albanshine Park Master Plan, not as a blueprint, but definitely a general guidepost for what we want to see out there. Further, the 2017 through 2020 Strategic Action Plan said not only finalize a vision for Albanshine Park, but move to implementation. So, we can definitely rehash that. I don't want to, quash conversation on that.
The decision's actually been made already.
Yeah.
The beer garden is planned to go at Albanshine.
So a couple points on that. I was going to get to that. We are working right now with. I very much doubt that we would build a pavilion structure that can operate as a beer garden and have that be a city-owned, maintained, and run function. What was really intriguing with kind of implementing these first pieces of the Albanshine Park Master Plan is we've been in conversations with a beer garden purveyor. Is that a thing? Sure, a beer purveyor, at least. And they've had successful models at the Petrifying Springs beer garden in Kenosha. We've kind of been honing a relationship with them. It was a little derailed by COVID, of course. We've kind of been honing a relationship with them to at least have a conversation about a contract for them to run our beer garden, because again, I don't think we want to be running our beer garden all the time. So there, we did have those conversations of, hey, have you looked at the lake and have you seen everything we're doing out there? And they drew back to, they think that the best business decision would be for Albanshine Park. Kind of to close on that though, because I certainly don't disagree with the comments that are made. We do have a huge envelope of public amenities. We'll plan more for the space in between the South and North Bluff per the last CIP item. But as a part of the Lakeshore Commons Master Plan, there is things like an amphitheater structure that we can do concerts at and things like that for the lakefront. Although, a beer garden, we were told that's probably better with all of the activity every night at Albanshine Park in the summer, with the Oakleaf Trail connections, with the cricket, with the skate park, with the baseball. They think that's probably a better move for the city to have a successful beer garden. Just to give you a little inside info on that.
That was easy.
No. Okay.
Still like Mike's idea, yeah.
I'll just add something really quick. Albanshine, I'm not against the beer garden at Albanshine, but when you're spending that kind of money, it'll be utilized. There's no doubt there's a lot of traffic down there. I don't disagree with that. But when I'm looking at the bigger picture, because the more money you spend at the lakefront, you're going to revitalize that neighborhood. You're not going to get that at Albanshine. That neighborhood is built out already. You take a look at Fifth Avenue and some of the surrounding streets there and what can be done, adjacent to that lakefront. And that's what would happen. The more traffic you put on that lakefront, that whole neighborhood's going to get revived. So that's where I'm coming from. That's my viewpoint.
Yeah, I totally agree with that in the sense that, I mean, the investments that we're making in partnership with F Street, resulting in probably conservatively at least $150 million worth of investment in that area will spill over to the surrounding areas and the North Bluff especially, and we're not even accounting for that as part of that initial figure. So I think that there's certainly a level of activity, everyday activity, that will help with that respect. The one, and not to kind of get into debate about, Albanshine versus Lakefront for beer garden, but certainly I think from our experience with our pop-up beer gardens has been that the more centralized location, actually within and adjacent to neighborhoods, has had a marked impact on the success financially of those beer gardens, and it makes more sense from an economic perspective to have it more accessible to the neighborhoods, and something that, oh my gosh, now I've got to drive in my car and go to the beer garden at Lake Vista, whereas, I mean, Albanshine Park is within, walking, biking distance, certainly short car ride of the vast majority of the folks in Creek. So from that perspective, I think that's a positive in terms of the Albanshine location. Certainly the setting at the lakefront is spectacular, and we'd love to see that activated in some way, shape, or form. But it is limited by geography and weather, so it's a really delicate balance, and I can see arguments for both. But I think that wherever you put it, we want to make sure that the investment that the city makes is more than just for a beer garden, something that is going to be utilized year round and can return.
That's one you can emphasize, Doug. Is this a multi-function?
Yes, we're not, and the design hasn't been done yet, obviously, but we're not designing a beer garden. We're designing a multi-purpose structure that can function well as a beer garden, and we'll have substantial input in the design of that for that purpose. But it's got to be available for other groups to use in the off season, and be something that makes sense in terms of, we talked about the Lake Vista Pavilion and kind of the unique design components that, quite frankly, are a little challenging in the out years with respect to maintenance. Now, we're going to make sure that that building that's designed provides functionality for not only the beer garden, again, but for the other use by the community, and keeping in mind some of the long-term maintenance aspects of that. We want it to be a great-looking structure, but we don't want it to be so unique and challenged from materials perspective that we're coming back 3 years later and making some major renovations to it.
You're out of here. Yeah.
I can't stay. I'm
going to jump around here.
Excuse me,
Yeah, Mike.
Fred, I know you had asked about where did the cost come from? In the cost analysis portion of the report, I had broken down design, pavilion, the cost of getting utilities in there, lighting, parking. So I mean that's the breakdown. This is a conceptual estimate, and so if something is, and I try to be conservative, so if something doesn't get used up in one aspect of the construction, that may have to that may get absorbed with another item. But yeah, I guess I felt pretty good with that, with the estimate. We certainly don't want to be the low bidder on this project. So,
are we looking for a 1-year completion of this project?
That's what I had written in the report. That was my understanding. That, I don't know, Andrew, if with your talks with this potential operator, was it still looking at, because we can get going on the public input aspect and the design pretty quick, and potentially have it constructed in 2022.
Well, that's not my area of expertise, so I'd defer to you. The idea has always been, is there a way to get this constructed in time for the 2022 season? I think that's going to be a lot of brain damage for us to try to do, and I don't know that that's our goal, but certainly if we can have that conversation with the Parks Commission and the council, and if that's a goal, we can see how we do that. But a lot of it, turns around on when we actually get the design and how long we want to take with that and how deliberate we want to be with that. you know, if we want to design it in a vacuum just with staff and maybe a couple elected officials of the Parks Commission, yeah, if we wanted to get some input from the public on it, you know, it might be a little longer. So certainly once we begin to construct, it would be within the year, you know, that we would be done.
I was just thinking, you know, when you get that type of cost, sometimes you want to spread it over a 2-year period rather than try to put it all in 1 year and kind of pack it in and kind of rush it through.
Yep, sure. Yeah, we would, you know, and you'll see this throughout these, you know, we have holdover funds and such from other projects that were unallocated or, you know, from 2019, 2020 in this very packet. So you'll see that although we earmark the money, you know, it might take a few years to, actually finish the whatever project's at hand. So.
But you got any concerns with the police dispatch consoles? Police, fire? The Watson seemed like a good choice. Hey, with you guys. All right. I want to jump to the IT item for the fiber because that involves fire department along with water utility. I think that's a biggie there too. Right. Got a young man here volunteering to get on the hot seat. Jump right in there.
I'll be talking from the IT side if there's any questions on this particular project here.
Introduce yourself, please.
I apologize. I don't think I've been in front of this board before. I am Tom Kramer, the Assistant IT Manager.
So Tom, would you just give a little overview on what we're trying to accomplish here? And I don't know if you want to bring the route up or if that's hugely relevant to everybody, but kind of just a general.
Sure. So the city has fiber to all the main buildings that the city owns, except for Fire Station 2. They've been utilizing a very low bandwidth option. So from an IT perspective, we've been trying to get this project done for a few years now. We reached out to the school district to work on the project. They they wanted to move a little bit faster than we could. So they went ahead with the beginning of their phase project. We are looking strictly to do down to Station 2, to water, and to Lake Vista. There is not many options down there for internet providers. So we're hoping that in the future we can lease this conduit down for internet service providers to come out there to try and make some of the money back. As well, if we can work with the school district to try to reduce some of the projects. Right now, we're asking for the funds to do it without the school district in case that doesn't pan out. But right now, we are looking for connectivity to Station 2 from that perspective, but water is going to benefit from this as well as.
Young man, I'm going to turn around and say the number one priority, that fiber ought to get down to the water utility plant.
Absolutely. I do agree.
Department, sorry, Mike. Utilities more important for controls.
No, I agree. Yeah, if there's any questions on any part of this, I'm more than happy to answer what I can.
Again, I would concern myself with getting it to the water. Why? Because ultimately, somewhere in this game planning, we ought to be looking at getting a different fire station. That building is at least 50 years old or in that neighborhood. Turning around and sending a fiber might be throwing money down a rat hole. All right?
Yeah, I think Chief Cusick has a pretty good idea, and I just have a hunch that over the next year or two, we're going to be having a concerted discussion about the next iteration of that fire station and what we're going to do. To your point, though, Mr. Chairman, if you see the funding source on the fiber, it's actually the ARPA cash we were talking about early, because one of the buckets is cybersecurity. So we're kind of using that as an argument Yeah.
Now you're talking my language.
We're using that as an argument. I mean, you can do water projects, but certainly the security of the water supply and the cyber security to make sure that that supply is safe is one of the more cut and dried pieces of ARPA once you go through that guidance document, Dale, that you're going to read tonight. So that's one-time cash that, we're not levying for. It's really, found money, if you will, for the next couple of years on that.
Andrew, and this is a project, your council saw this too. This is a project where a dollar amount actually it makes it easy to kick it down the road. It's too big to bite off and just do. We had 8 or 10 years ago, we had to float that bond to actually kind of pick off some of those bigger projects, find that it just perpetually delayed because they were just too big. Perfect situation here where you've got a bucket of money that's available to solve this kind of thing. Perfect time to do it.
I would also point out in regards to the fire station, the last one there, where the command center is, we paid cash. Just, something else we'll be talking about is equipment, ladder trucks. When you talk about...
Get Kirkowski started on ladder trucks, so...
Okay, anything else for this young man? I mean, I'm assuming you guys think that's reasonable for going with the fiber? Okay.
Good idea.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let me jump to, we get rid of the fire chief here. Dorm room at Station 3. Any concerns on the dorm room? Upgrading that?
Obviously, again, the ARPA cash, as Mike, Chief Kresick explained in a very good way in the memo. I mean, this is really in one vein to protect our folks when they're sleeping in this whole COVID thing. Just an appropriate use of the ARPA dollars. It's one of those clear, cut and dried things that ARPA can go for. So,
concerns on the dorm rooms, you guys, Mike? Good. Okay, you're out of here.
If I could,
They have something to say though.
if I could make two statements just for clarification. City Administrator Vickers had made a statement earlier that it's year 2 of 5 for the fire gear replacement. And he had mentioned that that's for our breathing apparatus. It's for our turnout gear. Breathing apparatus is a separate item that will be appearing within the next 3 or 4 years as a CIP. So I just want to, for clarification and understanding that if you see that come through as a CIP request and say, well, why wasn't that part of that 1 through 5 project, that it is actually a separate item. That's it. Thank you.
Colca, front and center.
Poor Dick.
just a quick little ditty on this. If you recall, some of the opening remarks, it was, we're really taking a hit in our building improvement maintenance reserve fund. And it was like, geez, we don't really like to use that much cash in one year, but these two projects, the Civic Center clock tower roof flashing and clock tower replacement, and the fuel island and diesel tank replacement, you can see that's what that 550 is this year. If you add the sum of the two up, there might be, the $20,000 for the switches that we talked about for the PD headquarters. These are hopefully extremely rare, big ticket dollar, big dollar items. And that really drove up the use of cash. So I don't think there's any expectation that we would be needing to do this every year, but certainly the clock tower and roof flashing replacement is going to annoy everybody because our building's 6 years old. But we wanted to bring in the sacrificial lamb here so we could see where we could have done.
He's used to that.
This one does burn us pretty good though. So.
I have to assume the big thing that's biting everybody is why, and isn't there any kind of warranty recourse for this to happen? I mean, this isn't Dick's fault. No, he's just a scapegoat.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Our specs that were put out by the architect when the building was built called for a 20-year warranty. on that flashing and that roof. I pulled out all of the documentation, what they call the shop drawings that were submitted to the architect, and the architect turned around and approved it. So as soon as when I first saw it, I thought it was bird droppings on the clock tower roof. So Kevin from IT was gracious enough to bring in his drone, and we flew it over the top of there to discover it was all the paint coming off. So then I contacted the roofer and told him what I saw, and he said, "Oh, I'll come out and take a look." Well, never did. I couldn't get a hold of him after that. So then I proceeded to pulled out the shop drawing, looked at the shop drawing, called the manufacturer and said, "Hey, all the paint's coming off of your flashing, your roof flashings." Yeah. And he said, "Send me the pictures that you took with the drone." And I did that. And he came back to me and said, "That's not my product." So from there, I don't know where to go.
City Attorney's Office.
So,
now you're above my pay grade.
No, Melissa's very much aware, and we do need to sort out the details of that in terms of what we can subrogate back. But just to keep this perspective, this is just a materials warranty. So even if we can solve that, we are still going to have the labor, which is going to be a significant portion of this. I don't know, probably, over 2/3 of it is the labor piece.
Yeah. The issue is
about the convoluted.
Yeah. The issue is access. That clock tower is an access nightmare. To get a piece of equipment to reach that is 42,000 pounds, and you can't put it on a concrete sidewalk without destroying the whole thing. So now you're left on having to scaffold it. So now you're scaffolding, that's close to 70 feet to the top of that clock tower.
You're used to that, Dick.
Yeah, well.
You're getting up in the world.
Is the plan to paint or replace?
Replace. Because once it starts peeling like that, nobody's going to guarantee anything. That what hasn't peeled and they've tried, to bond to that isn't going to fail, and now they're liable for their paint job.
So it's the roofing material strikes me to be different than the flashing, but how come it's not both?
Both are included in that project. The flashing around the whole building is also peeling. It's worse if you get on the roof, but it's going to just continue down on the face. When the building was built, the city required a customized color, not a standard color, and I don't know if something went wrong there.
That's when somebody like the city attorney to try and help lead this discussion, because there's got to be some.
We're going to wrestle with legal for years probably on that, but we just need to get it fixed.
We need to go forward and get it fixed, and then worry about the costs later. That's my opinion.
Well, we can get back.
Well, it's the same thing with like the doors on station, over on Centennial,
One.
Station 1, they've never been right from day one.
They are now.
They are now? Okay. But that took years too, so. You just got to get it done, so.
Standard colors then, so we don't.
Yes. Yeah, we'll pick a color that.
I'm not sure that that's necessarily a color issue. Certainly the pigments in this stuff.
It doesn't
galvanize material.
It's galvanized material, and then it's painted over the galvanized. Now, whether they didn't prep the galvanized properly, you would think they would know how.
Yeah, you think.
But the paint layer that's on it is not very thick.
The material is probably not prepped correctly for the paint to it.
We're all guessing.
So that everybody's going to be doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're.
I can't even find out.
You're good at that, Dick.
I can't even. Is this beat up on Dick Day?
No, you're just good at solving problems. So any more for Kolka here? Charge forward.
Other than, just get a caulk gun and get up there and.
All right, Dick, thank you. Good luck. I wouldn't give up on that. Got rid of the heavyweights. Let's see, I suppose work with Ted's stuff.
Start with the fuel island and then just burn through the PW stuff?
Yeah, let's burn through Ted. On the fuel island, I guess I didn't do my job correctly way back when, because I thought I got rid of all those goofy underground storage tanks, because we used PEFCA funding to pay for part of that stuff.
Well, they did remove the unleaded tank, and that is currently above ground. Actually, we're actually doing an upgrade to that. They're working on it today so that it'll meet state requirements. But that's a whole nother story. The fuel island actually, this started out with one of the state inspectors, which isn't a state employee anymore. They have they subcontracted out
to do inspections.
Right, and the guy came in and talked to me when he gave me the report, and he said that that he wasn't going to cite me for this, but I should really consider digging out the fuel island and replacing the sumps underneath the tanks themselves, because due to no one's fault, I mean, they're made out of fiberglass, and the ground itself starts to kind of collapse them. And so he said eventually we would get rejected and they would shut our fuel system down, and so I initially started this project with the intent of just replacing the actual island. And I thought, well, while the island's out, who has a fueling station without a canopy over it? I mean, so in the rain and snow and this and that, police, fire, everyone in the city uses the fueling station. So we wanted to get a canopy up over the pumps. And while we were in the process of this, and I guess I didn't realize this as well, the guy said to me, he goes, "Are you really considering tying into that diesel tank? It's over 20 years old and it's showing signs of, taking on water." And I was like, oh boy, what's that going to cost? So that's part of the bigger part of the cost. It's I think it's let me pull up those numbers. It's $150,000 just to remove and replace that the diesel tank. And
I think, Ted, you have turned around and saw the handwriting on the wall with this, and that's why you're leaving. You opened that hole.
Well, I think this is going to correct that problem myself. I don't think it'll be an issue for another 30 years.
Historically, okay, those soils are contaminated. We got hit by the DNR. Bob, I hope you're listening. Kalka was there back then.
Yeah, I've talked to Dick about this.
There were installed ground well monitoring stations. I don't know if they're still there, but back then the DNR did not put a timeline on when they would stop, that we had to provide yearly updates or something on that. Dick, you probably got better memory than I do.
You talked about the PECTA fund and removing tanks. You removed the 10,000 gallon tank by the old city hall. That's where everybody used to fuel. You removed the generator tank that was 1,000 gallon tank by the old police department on Howell Avenue. You removed a 500 gallon fuel tank that used to sit by old fire station 1. Those were the tanks that were removed under that PECTA fund. as far as the DPW, got that right. What happened was correct. The lines for the old non-leaded tank leaked between the tank and the dispenser. That's when they moved the tank above ground and replaced all those lines. The independent agency that monitored that project said that the fuel is contained within a certain area that the clay is holding it. They put all those monitoring wells in. So then back in 2009, we remodeled and added on to the DPW. When we did that, they put in a new truck a big hoist. And we had to dig a big pit for the rams to go down.
And they had contaminated soil.
Well, but all of the fuel, we pumped thousands of gallons of water out of that. Well, all of the fuel that was out in that contaminated area ran right back to that pit. And now the site is considered clean.
Oh, okay. Wow.
There's the history.
Thank you, sir.
You forgot this part when you said
The agency that was monitoring considered it clean, not us.
That's why I said Dick was good at solving problems.
Just remembering. I'm not as old.
So, at any rate, this project budget includes, the removal of the below ground diesel tank and installation of a new above ground 10,000 gallon tank canopy, a new fuel island, and some engineering and design costs. We plan on keeping the existing pumps. They're not very old and they're in good condition. And we recently replaced the system for dispensers for everyone to basically track, all that. That's all brand new. We'll be reusing that as well. So,
has there been discussion whatsoever? I mean, certainly things have transitioned, like you're doing more leases, less repairs, that kind of thing. You are turning around and getting some vehicles fueled. Is it regular gasoline vehicles are getting fueled that's Citgo or somebody like that, or Quick Mart? And any thoughts of getting out of doing the diesel end of the business too, that maybe you don't even want to be doing fueling at the highway department?
I mean, we thought about that. One of the problems that I see with that is, we do have accounts with Quick Trip for like emergency, police, fire, public works. And I know that water utility, I believe gets fuel there now. We've got so many vehicles and so many people. One of the things that we're concerned with is I really don't want our people over at the Quick Trip every day. And next thing you know, it's, well, I'm here. Oh, I got to use the bathroom. Oh, I'm going to run back in and get a ho-ho. I'm going to do this. And next thing you know, a 5-minute fueling of your truck, guys are over there for 25, 30 minutes apiece. So I really would prefer not to have all of our employees hanging around at the gas station. So absolutely.
So I'm sitting there all day long.
The size of a lot of your equipment too.
I agree with removing, replacing, all that. You're probably going to jump the action or investigation. Because if water's getting in, product's getting out. Just.
Well, like migrate.
Not so much that. It's just, it'll be a localized problem again, like you had with
the previous tank, but
Sensors, still buckets.
This is actually, I took the numbers that I got from some of the contractors and I bumped them up a little, but you know, I'm not, I will admit, I'm not a soils remediation expert, you know, so.
Until you get in,
let's put it this way, depending on the variability of your revenues, of your cash stream there, I wouldn't be bashful about adding another 50 grand to that project, just from historically.
You'll put the money tree in the backyard.
Well, historically, those kind of issues have bit us in the rear end.
I think the whole, you know, the white portion of the thing is, there's only one project Andrew hasn't recommended funding, so we have funding available.
And that's the one I want to talk about.
Yeah. So, yeah, but so other than that, I mean, we should probably move pretty quickly to the rest of the stuff, unless there's some significant issues that I don't know if there's a whole lot we need to really discuss. If we got a funding source and it's recommended by the staff. So otherwise this will go on for the rest of the day, so.
Well, let's stick with Ted. What else? We got any concerns for Ted's stuff?
Yeah, I did have the timing on the dump truck replacement. Is that thing just used that much? It seems like an 11-year-old dump truck. This doesn't strike me as that overly old, but if it gets used and pounded that hard, is that typical?
Oh, you're referring to a garbage truck,
yeah,
correct?
Garbage.
That truck was actually in use when the city did garbage. There's two of them.
Yeah.
So it was, I believe.
It's seen plenty of activity.
Yeah, it was 4 years in day-to-day garbage pickup, and now we actually use those trucks quite a bit. They don't just sit around. We use them for the spring fall cleanup, and we also use them for the recycle yard, and those.
Now you see some stuff that goes into those that.
Right, and we use them for all the special pickups at the residents. The one that we're actually asking to replace, those are single axle. They're smaller ones. This one is going to be a dual axle, so it'll hold considerably more trash and that, and so we're hoping that will help us even with timing for spring fall cleanup. To kind of speed things up. I mean, with the two smaller ones, it was taking us, almost 2 weeks to get through town on some of the cleanups. So yeah, and those trucks are getting pretty beat up. The hydraulics on them is, we've had to send mechanics out to the garbage dump on more than one occasion to try to free the things up when they get stuck trying to dump them and that. So yeah, they're getting pretty beat up.
That's the only thing I had, Dale.
Any other concerns on Ted's stuff?
No.
Do we still have the hot patch piece of equipment?
Like a tar?
It was like a hot asphalt.
Oh yeah, we do. We actually replaced that about 5 or 6 years ago. We actually reused the existing truck and put a new
burner or something
right on it. And so
how does this mastic one compare to that?
It's totally different. It's actually right now we have a crack sealer, and we go through and do crack sealing. But as our roads get older and some of the ratings on the roads get worse, in order for us to continue to keep them from not degrading faster, some of the cracks and are wider and bigger, and so this machine will actually do a wide swath. Like if a good example of it would be right here on Forest Hill Avenue. all the way from where Liberty turns, all the way down to Howell Avenue. There was a big gap in the pavement. It was probably 2 inches wide, and it ran the entire length. Well, this machine will actually fill that in, and it's totally different than what you can do with the crack sealer, because it'll melt a mixture of sand and rock and tar and fill that in. We've also found it extremely handy to use around manholes that stick up so our plow blades don't catch them and tear up the plowing equipment and that. So a very handy piece of equipment. We would continue to rent them, but they're in such high demand that you almost can't get them.
Okay. Done beating up on Ted. You're out of here.
Thank you.
Engineering, question on sourcing for like Apple Creek and Drexel Avenue. You keep referencing the TIF district stuff. Is there still cash available in those streams?
Yes. So on the Apple Creek subdivision, and Dale, you probably remember this, TID 7, which is a massive TID on the east side of this, or the west side of the city along 27th Street from, I believe, Drexel to Ryan. It's a massive district. Really was a victim of the housing crash in 2009. We actually lost increment from when we started that. TID 7, various projects in TID 7. TID 7 is very financially healthy. And what we're attempting to do here is TID 7's expenditure period. It's statutory 15 years essentially that you can expend dollars, commit dollars, expires in mid-April of 2022. So we're trying to squeeze out the benefit of that tax increment district because we can't close the district because the district is supporting the debt for the Drexel Avenue interchange and the 27th Street improvements from 2010 through 2013, I would say, 11 to 13. So we can't close it. We have money sitting there. We're like, well, let's get some more juice out of the squeeze here and get Apple Creek subdivision repaved at a minimum and some traffic calming devices in there before that expenditure period ends. Otherwise, in the end, we're just doling out that money back to the school district, the county, and the technical college. So that's kind of the logic there. So we don't have to source those improvements in our general road budget. As you can see, it would be basically, a large sum of that, $1 million of cash that we have for roads. So that's really the story on Apple Creek.
Well, the road improvements, I would think that's something we want to continue with. Pays are $650. I think ought to be doing more. That's my personal opinion.
We do them every 2 years.
So that's a big part of this budget. So if we could just spend a little bit of time on that. Why do you say, hey, staff, you say we have $1 million of roads, but we're only doing $645,000 worth of 2022 road improvements. So definitely for the elected folks on here, because this is a central piece of this budget we're putting together. In 2013, we borrowed $3 million and just did a bunch of road projects with the acknowledgement of the debt service, which in this case, it's about $315,000 every year. Or
that's the difference of your $1 million.
Exactly. So what the staff is suggesting this year, so we can do more, and we have some cash coming in, we're suggesting that we use cash to pay for that debt service on those and maximize our $1 million of roads. So if we don't do that, what comes off the table, in my opinion, is the at-grade crossing improvements, the 115 for Rawson Avenue, which we'd have to find a way to fund that, and then the Pewte Avenue Liberty Lane intersection improvements design. So we're paying for that debt service with cash, but in a roundabout way, we're just funding these projects with cash because we've opened up the rest of that $1 million. So we're buying something by paying off the debt service. Does that make sense? So we actually are spending $1 million, essentially $1 million of that $1 million on roads if we pay off that debt service. There's only one more year after 2022 remaining on that debt service. We'll probably take the same approach next year and pre-fund essentially the debt service with cash we have on hand. And then that falls off and then we actually have the full $1 million every year.
So in essence, that's 650 in the Pacer. Do I understand that correctly? You're not actually doing 650 next year. You're lumping them for 2 years. So 2023, you'll be taking the funding for 2022 and 2023 and expending it in 2023.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, but I know this is a new concept for some folks, so I don't know if you wanted to just kind of, I don't know what the impetus for switching to the every other year projects, larger bid, better.
Yep, that's correct. Probably, I think Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, we've probably done this for at least 3, if not 4 cycles where it's like, okay, because we have this debt service, do we want to go out for a bid for, 630-some thousand every single year? Let's do it every other year and have a bigger contract, hopefully for, just hoping for better unit prices and proceeding like that. And that's worked for us. But like Andrew says, we're getting close to finally having that service paid off. And then maybe things will change or we go for $2 million every 2 years or $1 million every year. But then again, now this Apple Creek, this is a project that would actually be done next year in 2022, right? Different funding source. That would be the TID 7. So, and I think that would be a really good project. These roads have not been, they've just had minor routine maintenance to them. There are some rough spots, so we have to do some patching, but then milling and overlaying them, getting them back to like new. We're talking, just under 2 miles worth of roadways. So it would be a good project. So
the Pacer rating roads, you will bring that back to this group when we're in the project year, right? To discuss with you, hey, if we're doing these roads, what do you think about this?
Right.
Elected officials always have an idea on a road in their district, of course, too. But the other thing I wanted to mention on that 645, really the $1 million of road cash. We had a CIP funding analysis to determine how we can better fund our roadways, because I came from a community of 8,500 people, and we had this much money in our road budget. So $1 million, really, if you look at it, $2 million for all of your capital budget for a community this size is something we need to address moving forward. Obviously, we're funding for $6.7 million of capital improvements, but if we were in the breadline and not having all of these sources of cash that we've been ferreting away for periods of years, we would be looking at a $2 million budget, maybe with the exception of some impact fees that we have on hand. So the CIP funding analysis said that, geez, you can make, if you were to budget an additional $350,000 of maintenance, of cutting out the middle of those Pacer ratings, 5 to 7 rating, if you can do some preventive maintenance, a little more significant preventive maintenance, I would say, on those 5 to 7 Pacer ratings, the life cycle cost of the curve of that life cycle cost bends in our favor pretty significantly, right?
That's correct. Yep.
When that debt service falls off after 2023, we should really take a look at, it's about a round number of about $325,000. We really should look at finally, achieving that goal, which we haven't been able to the last 2 years, of adding $350,000 to our road budget to handle those more significant preventive maintenance items. So just a pitch for that later on. It's a ways out there, but.
On the Drexel Avenue expense, and you're talking about tapping 11 and 12. I want to tie in the fact of the Drexel Stormwater Lift Station. And let me preface a couple things here. on the Drexel Avenue improvements, instead of tapping 11 and 12, I'd be looking at, if it's possible, to be tapping some of those state transportation funds for at least a piece of that, such that $200,000 went, maybe from 11 and 12, went into the Drexel Stormwater Lift Station. Again, historically speaking, I don't think you guys have had the opportunity to live through a lift station that wasn't functioning or didn't have one. We had some major crises in this community with Ryan Road, all right? You could have a half-inch of rain, that road is blocked. That's a major safety factor for people to get through, fire trucks to get through, ambulances to get through. We have storm issues where Pewte was closed because of storm damage. We had Oakwood closed, and here Ryan Road is underwater. We were fortunate enough to get the Sewage District to spend the money to put that lift station in for us. But now we have to turn around and maintain it. For Drexel Avenue to fail, you've turned around and created this major business opportunity with Drexel Town Square. You're improving Drexel Avenue. You've now got an interchange on Drexel Avenue. Don't fall short on your vision for maintaining that lift station. That is a key piece of information. I would be bend over backwards for you guys to turn around and, it doesn't have to happen next year, but don't let that out of your sight. Start funding it. That needs to be maintained so that you continue to prosper with that major intersection.
So staff is not in disagreement on the need to get after that project and get on top and stay on top of it. It's a critical piece of infrastructure. We all agree to that. And it's a little misleading in that it wasn't funded. We wanted to have the conversation with you about how you want to fund it. So what the suggestion was, because it's not a $100,000 project, because we'd figure it out. If it's a $200,000 project, it's a $750,000 project. So I guess where there was debate among the staff was, do we want to raise stormwater fees every year for a period of years to handle this 200,000, such that in year, I believe 2024, we have the $750,000 of cash to do it? Or do we want to wait, do the project and assume the same timeline for the project, perhaps take out a little bit of debt for the project, and then raise the stormwater fees, the special charges on your tax bill for just that debt service amount? Because the debt service is not going to be $200,000 a year. The debt service will be, whatever it is. If we amortize it to say maybe 10 years, 750,000 over 10 years, that's what we would need to get from an increase in fees, as opposed to saying we're going to raise fees 3 or 4 times as much as not necessarily as much as we need to, but to accommodate our target goal of 200. So it's really, how do you want to skin the cat? And I think the council would love to hear your input on it, but they would be the ones making the decision to obviously, raise the stormwater fees. So that is a different lens maybe for them than what you would have. So we're all in agreement with the chairman here. This project is critical. They didn't even need to beat me over the head with that one. I understood, although I'm not very technically savvy. It's just a matter of how we want to do it.
I would just make the recommendation to Common Council that by hook or crook, they put $200,000 this year in the next budget for that particular project, and that as soon as you can come up with the rest of it within the next 4 or 5 years to get it done. But at least, bank it now.
And the priorities are not misaligned here. The West Drexel Avenue, where we're using TID 11 and TID 12, that's actually the the city's portion of that large SDP grant. So we that's the 20% of the overall project cost. So it wasn't like, oh, maybe we won't fund that and we can do the 200 or something. We've already committed to that West Drexel project, which is going to be great. So it's really about how you want to do the lifts, how we want to fund the lift station. Is it over time, or is it do the project in the year that it's, rightfully to do the project and take out a little bit of debt and raise your stormwater fee incrementally to meet that debt service as opposed to cash funding it in the meantime.
Like, how are they doing state transportation aids these days? Is it just based on the priorities that you guys set amongst all the different communities that's out there? Or?
Yeah, it's an application process, and there's always many more applications than there are awards, and so there's just a lot of factors that go into who gets selected, and part of that is when was the last time you were awarded some money. So we were fortunate enough to have this project selected, and like Andrew said, we committed to it. So design this year, construction next year. We can't really mess with that process. That's all set in stone. We don't want to jeopardize the money that we're getting. So.
Anything else, you guys?
What are we spending on? You addressed maintenance costs. What kind of money is it costing us to maintain this thing?
Talking on the lift station?
Yeah, the lift station. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
where actually is it, Mike? Sorry.
So this is, it's on the north side of Drexel Avenue, just west of the railroad overpass. So if you were to drive there, you'd see the hatch. It's down kind of in the sidewalk area. And, just talking with Darren and Brian over at the Water and Sewer Utility, I kind of listed the shortcomings that they are dealing with as far as the costs associated with that. I don't know if they want to just speak to that, but the bottom line is it's a 40-year-old structure, and it's just going to get more and more costly to maintain. And like Dale alluded to, we can't have it fail, because when it's going to fail is when all hell is breaking loose. It's raining, 6 inches of rain, and people are going to try getting under there, and emergency vehicles won't be able to get through. And then we'll have to answer to that. So as we started looking at addressing, like there was an electrical project that we thought needed to take place, but as we looked at that again, and all the other things that are starting to really occupy their time and labor maintenance wise, it's like let's see what it'll take to get this thing replaced and to a better design for that matter, because right now the pumps are down underground. And that thing gets inundated. Big problem.
That council, whether or not we do a sinking fund or fund it with debt at the time of construction. So.
And what was your
big the debt issue had to be make it work?
No, each dollar increase to the stormwater special charge yields.
Yeah, so every increase in the dollar per ERU, it's about $25,000. So from a debt service perspective, if you were to amortize this over, say, 10 years with debt, I would imagine your payment per year is going to be about $90,000 to $100,000. So you would be looking at about $4 or
$8 now every year. So that's kind of the decision lens.
We've gone from high 20s to 39, I think, in the last decade, probably.
Yes.
And I think we've stuck to 39. Is this our third year with 39?
We had a $2 annual increase for like 2 or 3 years in a row, and last year, maybe even the last 2 years, it's been flat.
Right.
Politically, a little tricky the last couple of years, so. But I mean, stormwater, Dale, you were mayor when these were significant issues and a lot of money needed to be spent to fix some serious problems. So city's from a like emergency standpoint, a lot better place than it was 2 decades ago.
Decades ago.
We like that in a certain frame of mind around here. So.
Okay.
If you don't mind, just to maybe wrap up here, if it pleases the chair, but if you talk a little bit about the Pewte Avenue and Liberty Lane, I think everyone kind of understands the rough crossings at the railroad with the railroad rails.
And that one we got to get right because we spent money there a couple of years ago and it's still not right. So.
Right. So that was probably 5 years ago that 4 or 5 years ago that we had done a traffic signal analysis at 2 intersections. One was 10th and Drexel, and since that time, traffic signals have gone in there. And then at Pewte and Liberty, and it was not warranted on the numbers that we saw at that time. And I think that was, we had Drexel, we had Drexel Town Square all built up by that time. So, but at any rate, we did kind of an interim safety measure just to get vehicles to be able to make that movement, that turn onto Liberty, heading towards Drexel Town Square. We gave them that sheltered left turn with the island. But nonetheless, though, I mean, it's if you're at that intersection, you're trying to enter Pewte, taking a left-hand turn either from the south or the north, you are, depending on the time of day, a lot of times you're waiting a long time to get an adequate gap there. So, we want to look at it again, and we think that the result of that will be that yes, it's time to do some improvements, whether that's traffic signals or you even mentioned in the report, maybe we look at a roundabout there, so we've seen, we've seen roundabouts really functioning well, moving traffic very efficiently through some of these intersections that back up at certain times of the day. It just keeps them moving. I always think of the one that's in over at 51st and Drexel. My kids went to high school there, and when the backups that were happening with parents dropping off kids, and it just moves them through so nicely now. So so we thought we'd like to have that evaluated and even designed in 22, and then look at construction in 23 if we could.
Safety. A lot of westbound traffic, people come flying over the top of the hill, and the people that are trying to go south off of Liberty onto the street there, it's.
Yeah, even that's a little
There's
crazy.
not much coming north, but they're trying to go south.
Yeah.
East or west.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially if there's been a train.
Yep.
Then it's backed up traffic, or the school opening and closing is a time of day it seems to be.
It's ugly. Did
you tear that viaduct down?
Did I what?
Did you tear that bridge down?
There was no bridge there.
I had heard there was a bridge there at some.
Way long before me. There was never a bridge there. Not that I remember. It was a cattle crossing.
You're talking like overpass. Not a great.
At Pewte?
Was there?
It's designed and sitting in the files in the vault.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was designed in the 70s, I think, but it never got implemented.
A lot of money.
That bridge is a bridge.
Oh, that's something you can't totally rule out because.
Well, it's, and then you're going to spend money on a 4-lane expansion at some point anyway.
Yes.
And does that, are those confounding variables? Would we have to decide that urbanization with this intersection, or can it be done in its constituent parts?
It could be done in parts with, you know, with an eye towards, okay, what we're doing here at Pewte and Liberty. How is that gonna work with what we want to do with Pewte's to the west? Because we had a design for 4 lanes, and we've since looked at a design of 3 lanes, basically that two-way left turn lane that actually I think would be a good fit in that area. So we do foresee that somewhere in the not too distant future. We might be biting off more than we could chew at this time with everything else we got going on if we were trying to push that one forward.
Right. Is happy?
Yeah, I think this is pretty.
Fred? Okay, how about we do this? How about we turn around and do a motion to recommend the common council to include the various capital improvement plan items as discussed in this 2022 capital improvement plan budget?
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Deal aye.
Tobin, aye.
Richards, aye.
Sleeper, aye.
Sigali, aye.
Anything else, gentlemen? Motion for adjournment. Is that a motion?
Nothing else on the agenda, so we're good.
So move.
Second.
Roll
Yeah.
call.
Tobin, aye.
Richards, aye.
Sleeper, aye.
Sigali, aye.
It's a wrap, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.